intervene in your conversation with your mom. This is for you to grow up and have your bond and your love for your mom because you only get one mother. You only get one father. So you can love them the same.
Welcome to Just Men, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Tyrus Vaughn. Tyrus Vaughn, welcome to Just Men.
Good to meet you.
Oh man, it's a tremendous blessing for you to be on our program, and I know we're going to have a lot of things to talk about. And like I said, we're going to go deep. We're going to be transparent. We're going to talk about some of these issues that men faced with throughout their lives. But before we dive into, the things that you have on your heart and mind, and sharing us some knowledge and wisdom, share a little bit about who is Tyrus Vaughn.
Tyrus Vaughn is a native of Nashville. I came, born and raised here. After I was raised here, 18 years old, I went to the military. Stayed into the military for about 4 years, and after which came to Nashville Tech and got a degree in accounting. And then I became to do some more different things, and I worked around the city and in the city, out of the city, doing accounting work, and then moved to Atlanta. After about 4 years of Atlanta doing mortgages, I moved back to Nashville and been here raising my kids, and that's it.
Wow, that's beautiful. I know there's more to it than that's it, but we're going to dive a little bit because I think what's so significant about your topic and why you're here and what's on your heart is laying the foundation of fatherhood. What is fatherhood and what does that mean to you, and how was it modeled in your life growing up as a young man, a young African-American man, in terms of your environment? Share a little bit about that experience and how you seen fatherhood modeled.
Growing up in my parents' house, my mother and father were together, of course, and my father was a hard-working man. He worked at Ford Glass Plant for over 35 years, and I watched him work diligently day in, day out, and he gave me a pattern of understanding that every day you do go to work, whether it's you think you're just going to do a job, you're still doing the work for something higher, which is basically taking care of your family and teaching your kids to be better individuals, better citizens than yourself, and just trying to help them to get further along in life than you were.
Wow, that's good. I know I'm also an accountant as well, and graduate in accounting. I know the discipline behind accounting, man, and so a lot of times you learn life's lessons, even through our scholastic life, but also our personal lives, and how we have to be disciplined and things done in a timely manner. You got to be organized. What are some of the things that you've seen growing up that you think is so instrumental in being a good father?
My father was he was there for me outside of working. Wow. He was always there watching my brother and I play basketball or baseball. He was at all the football games, whether he had to take off work or work late or come in early, or if it was just hit and miss coming in, and just making sure we did the things around the house as well, as far as obeying the mother and keeping our grades up in school. He was just real active in making sure that we were comprehending and do things that most parents wouldn't do, or not say what we're doing, but more of sometimes a stricter thing. Instead of we go out in the summertime, before you go out, you have to read 2 or 3 chapters. In order for you to get a snack after school, you need to know your multiplication tables. Things like that. He just kind of instilled in me the importance of education, and it just made me feel really close to my dad all these years and growing up. And he became a friend to the fact that I could always talk to him and say, hey, Dad, I have this question about life, or I have this question about life. And it just gave me a lot of respect and understanding for what it was going to be for me to be a father.
Wow, you said one of the most powerful things that I often don't hear. Fatherhood represent being there.
Right.
Many times it's hit and run. Sometimes these people find themselves into fatherhood or as a biological parent, but yet they're not there, and they're not spending time, and they're not, as you were saying, man, providing. Let's begin to start talking about some of the things that in your profession and what you do and what you experience, and how, from a legal standpoint and some of the other standpoints, on how the fatherhood, what it means and what some of the things you need to know about fatherhood, other than just laying down and creating a child biologically. There's so much more. Let's begin to dive into that topic.
Well, today's time has changed so much that, we're not the old school 1950s and 60s where couples were, you get married if you had a child come, and then it became very common that people will have children out of wedlock, and having them out of wedlock, you have so many different instances where so many young men don't know exactly what is about to happen to them and what it takes place in their life. One of the things my mother used to tell me was, you know, son, that's your 15 minutes of fame. If you make the baby, take care of it. And it was always important for me to not only understand that, but when that came to me, and it was my time that I had created a child, it was so important for me to not only know that I was going to be there for that child, you know, through the baseball games, football games, and school, but I was going to be there for him financially. And there's some things that I had to do on that level to get myself prepared to do those things as a father. And what I learned was I learned to read a whole lot more, and I was really grateful for a lot of things my dad made me read because I understood and comprehend what I read. And then when that instance came, you have this situation where you have the child support services, and the child support services become your life into this big entity. And a lot of people, layman people or common people or normal men just don't know rules and the laws of child support agencies. So many things that they can do or they do to just not railroad you, but more of a put you in a situation where you are obligated to take care of because you don't know. So I've done a lot of studying because of all the things that I began to go through with my child support issues. It was a time that I had to really dig in deep and understand, yes, this money is obligated to me, but we need to make sure that not only I am following the court order, but let's make sure everybody else is following the court order. Sometimes the situations and laws can happen and you don't even know what is happening or why it's happening before it does happen. It's really important about fathers. They need to teach their sons to be prepared for this world in so many different ways. If you are to become a father, then you need to know that you need to be prepared for the financial obligation that the courts are going to make on you because your 15 minutes fame has now turned into 18 years of raising and taking care of a child. And it may not work always in your favor, but especially if you go into the courts without an attorney or you go into the courts without knowing. 9 out of 10 times it's not going to work in your favor because you don't know the rules of the courts or you don't know the laws of the state, perhaps because you're only educated so far or you're not an attorney. And that's what makes it a lot of hard for young men growing up from their 20s, if they've had a child in their 20s, to through their 30s and their 40s. And that's where fatherhood really plays a part in my mind, in teaching your child that, hey, you know what, these obligations are going to be there. It seems fun and a lot of people are doing it and things of that nature, but you have to pay attention because these courts are going to put these rules on you and you have to stay in place or they're going to put another rule on you and send you to jail. So you just have to be careful with a lot of different things. You have to pay attention to what the mother's doing as far as the courts of, in my mind, layman terms, you would say they were abused because if a mother says she doesn't want something at one point in time, then this agency may say, the child support agency used to say that we didn't have to abide by it. For my personal case, the laws were a little different about fathers and child support agencies and things of that nature, and then you have court orders. One of the things that I came into encounter was a point in time where my son's mother said she didn't want the child support. And she could tell child support agency that she wasn't wanting it, and then they would just stop the court order payments. Well, this is a problem because the court order says, hey, the payment wasn't supposed to be stopped. So even though the court, they said they wasn't going to accept the payment, you're still obligated, and that's the power of the courts. And that's something that a lot of young men do not know, that the power of court could tell you, hey, well, my order wasn't stopped. They didn't have a right to stop this order. That's what made a lot of things change for me also later on in my life when I found out the rules of the laws had changed, where the court or child support services had to follow the court order as well, because the court order is given to the individual, but they can't stop it without, just based upon the non-custodial or the custodial parent's word. So it's one of those situations that can financially hinder a man that's going through his late 20s, early 30s, that he has to grow with until that child is 18 years old, and he really needs to be aware of those type of things.
Wow.
Wholeheartedly.
Man, that's beautiful. I know that there's so much, man, that's just flowing through my mind when you start talking about, because I know several young men that I've encountered over the years that have kids out of wedlock and they're not with the mother. They call it that baby mama drama.
Yeah.
Issues, and some of them have decided, one, they end up being incarcerated because they're not paying support, Another one, which I think is more devastating, is where they're not involved in the child's life anymore for various reasons. One, because they can't get along with the mother. Two, because they feel that that the child, they're not entitled to anything because the child is not with them. And in some situations where the child, the mother may have a boyfriend or someone else, and the child may be calling another man daddy.
Right.
And so, the men or the brothers are saying like, hey, I'm not going to support a child that I don't even feel is mine, kind of thing. And so I think it's commendable, one, that men who do step up, even though they feel that there's a detachment there, they're still taking responsibilities in terms of providing some level of support. But there's a lot of other things going on in between, as you just described, about that.
Well, Jeff, that's another thing that we need to understand as well, because the court and that law is really a two-way street. That father does have rights. He does have rights to know about the schoolwork, to know about what's going on with the doctor's appointments, to know what's going on with that child regardless. That father has his parental right to see that child every weekend, your summer vacations. And we have to be persistent as men to not say, okay, well, we'll just pay the child support and not worry about this child, because this child still needs his father. And believe it or not, that child's going to look for his father. That child's going to love his father, whether he's been there 3 weeks or whether he's been there the whole time. So we have to be persistent as men to say, you know what, you're just not going to take my child from me. I'm going to stick and fight for my child. So that means I do have to come to court. I'll take off work and come to court. And at the same token, yes, you'll get your money, but at the same token, I want my child, because that child deserves me as much as you deserve the child. And that's one thing I'm happy to say about the child support, that the courts at this point in time for juvenile courts, that I have seen them change over the years. I have seen them say, you know what, the father does have his rights, and you are going to allow this father to see the child every other holiday and visit on Father's Days. And the men have to really stick hold to it, because if I looked at it as, if you're going to tell me you're going to take my money, then you're going to also give me the rights that I deserve. And that's what a father really needs to do as well. Stick up for his own individual rights. It's not just his individual rights, but it's the rights of that child, because that child needs that father. That child needs that fatherly figure to teach him what it is to be in this world, because we don't know what's going on in this world. 18 years old, as young men, we think we know the world is going on, and we hadn't even started our life. And you see so many different celebrities and other people talking about it at a later age, but at a young age, you should really be looking to say, hey, I need to know what's going on with my life, and I need to know which way I'm going. And if I father a child, then I can take care of my child.
Wow. That's something that's powerful, too, when you start talking about taking care of a child. Many times that pleasure, you're not thinking down the line in terms of how to provide financially, mentally, spiritually, and things of that nature. You're just interested in getting your groove on.
Right.
So, and so now you're saying, no, you need to think twice. But then some of the brothers may say, but then the women carry some responsibility as well in this relationship, because I know, and I can tell you 3 examples, and we want to be transparent. I have some cousins. One of them got 7 kids, and they're about 22. The other one has 3, following his brother footsteps, and he has 3, and they look at it like almost a badge of honor, And we've had a guest on over the years. One had 12 kids. And he was saying, there's no way that I can afford, to get in the system where I got to pay my children's child support, or they'll take everything I got.
Right.
And so he's like ducking and dodging. But yeah, here you have kids that are not, are not being provided, especially that affirmation. One of the things that's so powerful was he had made a statement that his kids was like an investment. He said, one of my child is going to be a Michael Jordan. One of them is going to be a Beyonce. So they're having these volumes of kids, but not being there, as you talked about your father, as though that's something to say that's a man or that's fatherhood. And you and I know that that's true. It's not a true identity of fatherhood. That is identity of really a child or boy.
Right.
That's trying to imitate fatherhood, but it's a false imitation, because you describe fatherhood and what your father did, and is being there, taking responsibility, and so forth. Give me your perspective and your insight now that you've went through this, and I envision, I guess, when you did have your child, you were young, in terms of that. What have you seen as a reward? I don't want to talk just so much about, what happens to you. But some of the men need to see the valuable rewards of when they do take a stand and fight for their child, and the value in and going through the system and educating himself like you talked about?
The reward is just seeing your child grow up and mature over time. And although you've gone through all the baby mama drama, you've gone through the I'm not going to let you see a child. You've gone through the I don't care what the courts say. And you've gone through the no good daddy, the downright daddy that didn't want to take care of his child or didn't want to marry the mother. You see that child grow up and you see him mature. I see my 16-year-old now, he's almost 17 to this day. I'm so proud of him because I see him growing up bits and by pieces, week in, week out, and I see him just maturing some. It's a slow maturing process, but you see this child actually developing to become a young man, and he becomes more responsible weekly or daily, and you see, wait a minute now, I remember a year ago he wasn't doing that, and 2 years ago he wasn't doing that, and you still push him to do so much more because you want him to be so much more. And I never understood that when my father used to work at Ford, and I used to think, you know, why do you work so hard? And he said, if you get your education, you won't have to work as hard as I do. So I sit back and I look at my son, I say, I have an education, but it's still not enough. So I'm telling you where you need to go so you don't have to work as hard. And it's just he asked me, why do I tell him that? I tell him because my job is to teach you to progress so you can teach your son to progress. And so he could teach his son to progress because we can never go backwards. So the reward is when he actually comprehends what it is to progress and he sticks with it, and he has to stick to it in this because I had to stick to it in this to keep fighting all these years, you know. I had to stick to it in this to say, you know what, I'm determined that you won't take this away from me because he's going to be better than I am at the next level. So the reward is just watching him grow up and mature. And it's funny because when I say, have a good day, young man, he said, you too have a good day, young man. So that's a really good, deep reward for my son to give me dap on his way to school and say, I love you, Dad. And then they're like, I love you back. So it's really that individual reward of that child being appreciative of it. And he doesn't even know about all the fights you really had.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. One of the things, and I know it gets a little delicate, particularly when you're trying to balance this with your son. You talk about your son, particularly when you got drama here on the left and you're trying to nurture your son at the same time. And sometimes the communication, I know many adults bring their kids into the fight and use and leverage their child in terms of that. What type of dialogue you have with your son? One, to keep him to where there's no bitterness about you and your relationship with the mom. And then two, to keep him with the mind, an open mind that two parents loving each other, married, consummated through marriage, is ideal versus, you know, not working things out and splitting up, and then you got this division. I mean, how do you have those kind of conversations with your son, or are you that transparent with your son?
I'm very open with my son. It's nothing my son can ask me that I won't tell him, good, bad, or indifferent. One of my things my parents taught me was always tell the truth. Whether they like it or not, it's the truth. And they can't worry about it at that point. But what I do with my son is I try to break it down to him on a level that he likes, maybe on his level, and we'll talk about, well, you have two pairs of shoes, right? And he said, yeah, well, I like both shoes the same, exactly. You have two parents, and they both love you, and you should like them the same. And I just keep him out of that conversation because I more or less tell him, you know, some things are just not meant for you to be at this point to know. You're not on the level to know it, and it's not a downplay to him, but it's more of to, you know, that's a grown-up situation that you really don't need to be involved with because it's about you, but it doesn't have anything to do with you. And that's what I try to just keep telling them and let them understand that, you know, we love you, we just can't agree on how to take care of you, or we don't agree on what should be done for you. And with that, I just let them know people are not going to always agree. You have cousins, you have a sister that you don't always agree with, you have friends that you don't always agree with, or you don't always agree with me, you're not always going to agree with your parents, so your mom. So you're not going to always agree, and that's what it was, your mother and I, we just couldn't agree, and we don't agree. So since we didn't agree, it's just best we love you separately. And we just try to dilate to the point of, like, my son is 16 now, so I more or less tell him, you know, it's your conversation with your mom. I don't have to intervene in your conversation with your mom. This is for you to grow up and have your bond and your love for your mom because you only get one mother. You only get one father. So you can love them the same, and you don't have to intertwine that anger because that anger is not your anger. So we can let it go, and if I let it go, he'll let it go.
Wow, that's good. That's good. I like what you said in terms of keeping the dividing lines. In fact, you are guarding your child when you don't bring them into that type of drama and relationship because they're not prepared for it and shouldn't be because they're being nurtured. And it's what you instill in them is what they're going to end up magnifying in terms of that. So if you instill that type of drama and bitterness and division, then that's what generally is perpetuated in their next relationship. And so you got to be very guarded in that aspect. So that's beautiful that you would say that you keep that part, the relationship separate, and yet still being able to love your son. So many men, watch our program and obviously do have some issues in terms of a relationship outside of maybe even their current marriage. They're married now and they got another child, another relationship. Yeah. How do you balance that in terms of now you're providing for another child and another family, and yet you're still a part of your existing family?
Well, I think you just got to be strong within yourself, and there's limitations for everything, and there's a balance for everything. And the only way to really balance it is just to know your limitations and how far you can go for different things. When you have that other family and you still have your child, and I've been in that situation and still in that situation as well, but you have a child here with a spouse and then you have your son, and you have to balance it and you have to make them mix some kind of way. And then if it doesn't mix, then you have to figure out a way to resolve it where hopefully everybody can somehow be the happiest, because you have to be happy in order to be successful. If you're in a situation and you're bitter all the time, you're not going to be happy anywhere else. Nothing else is going to work for you, because you're going to take that bitterness on to the next thing, whether it's work or whether it's to another relationship or whether it's to just play basketball or anything else you do. You take that bitterness with you. So the balance seems to come in when you just have to say to yourself, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to solve it? And that inner peace will come from within, and it'll help you. And that's where you get your balance from. You get your peace of mind, and you have I call it a hideaway spot that I could just go to, and I can find my inner peace. And that's what helps me balance everything out on a daily situation.
Wow, that's powerful. That's good. That's good. I know that I call it win from within. Many times as men, we run to circumstances and situations to try to change the inward turmoil that's going on inside of us. And if it's not a circumstance that we run to for salvation, we go to people or things. I got to buy this new car. I got to get this new job. I got to fix this outward man. And I think that if I change my position, it's going to change my condition. But unless you go in, I like what you said. Unless you go within and find the peace within, then it doesn't matter where you go. It's always going to carry it with. In fact, many times you infect others around you with the same virus.
Right.
You could be doing well. You had a situation where you're doing well, somebody come in and throw some conversation in there and steal your joy, steal your peace. You go, man, how did I get caught up in that?
Right.
we were doing well, but they said something and it drew me in. It's like the spirit is trying to pull you out of your peace, pull you out of your joy. And if you entertain it, and some of us, we sit around and we entertain it, then we go, how did I get here? And all of a sudden you're in deep, and then you realize your mind has done pulled you away from your peace, and you're trying to get it back. And so what you said is very powerful. What words of encouragement? I know you've enlightened us about the court system and how you have to arm yourself with knowledge and arm yourself. And is not to, and I think we don't want to mix the message that you want to arm yourself there to undermine the system or to try to not be responsible. I know a lot of the women that watch our program, they talk about, the men are not being responsible. So they're trying to use the court system to dodge their responsibility from that standpoint. But in any event, whatever man's heart is or his motives, what words of encouragement do you have for men that have found themselves in the situation that you just described as a young parent and tossed, in terms of their relationship?
Well, I would just tell a young man to just stay positive. Do what you have to do to remain positive at all time, because you're gonna get a lot of frustration. You're gonna run a lot of bumps in the road, and you're gonna go a lot of hurdles. But you just have to stay focused and steadfast, because if you have a desire or a picture in mind or a goal, which is to be there for your child, then you'll do it, and you will go through whatever storm is gonna come your way. And at the likewise, I would say be armed with knowledge. Know as much as you possibly can. Find an attorney that you think you can trust or you can believe in, and let that attorney help you and teach you and tell you different things, or that just point you in a direction. The internet is phenomenal. Gives you all kind of information. You can find out anything. You can Google whatever question you want, and it'll give you that answer. So that's a wealth of information, and then you can validate it and verify it through an attorney that's willing to talk to you and counsel. I would say that, and then I would just say, try to be cordial with the mother, the best you can, because when it's all said and done, that person's going to end up being outside the court that you have to deal with anyway for your child. So if you can some kind of way find a happy medium for her and you, if it is about money or whether it is you about being there for your child, then find a happy medium. Give her the break that she wants, or try to something, and if that doesn't work, then, you just have to continue to get a point that you have to keep trying. You'll never run into the right answer until it works out perfectly for you. So if it never works out perfectly for you, you just got to keep trying different avenues. Don't stop. I mean, the child is yours, and you might as well do everything you can to make that child better than you, in my opinion, and it'll help not just the child, but it'll help you in the long run, because it'll give you inner peace. It'll help you become more patient and steadfast, and it'll help you get an understanding of what life is really about and what you were probably meant to be. Wow. While you was here.
That's beautiful. We got to have you back on our program. I don't know where the time went, because I really was pressing on my heart, and I'll let you close in the last moment of our program, particularly in what motivates you. What keeps you positive? What keeps you, it's one thing when you tell others to be positive and to take the pathway of uprightness. I mean, that's what Justment is about. It's being upright and living according to my life, according to the Spirit of God and according to the standard of God. But for you, what is it? And I think that should be our last words of encouragement, is what keeps you positive? What keeps you moving forward?
I found positive just loving my kids, honestly. They make me be positive because I want so much for them. There's certain things that I wanted to do that I took a long road trying to get there. A road that of not listening to my parents, but wanting to go another way and think I could do it on my own. And then I look at my kids and I think, well, whatever it's going to take to give them the life that I wanted, or what I think is best for them, or I'm going to help them to get to that next level. That's my positive motivation. Every day I look at my son, and then every other day I look at my daughter, and I just think, where would I be without them? What would I be doing? What would motivate me to get up and go to work? What would keep me driving and pushing? And it's just my kids. It really is. It's amazing. I never thought it'd be the day that I live for my kids, but in all actuality, that's who I live for. Wow. Day in, day out, and I try to stay positive because they need a positive role model. They need to see somebody with a smile on their face. They need to see somebody who's there for them to help them understand what this world is and what is going to happen in this world. This world is tough. Jeff, this world is tough. It's a struggle to be able to maintain, have your freedom, know right from wrong, and to be able to stand. It's a tough world to be a man. And if you have a son, you gotta make him be a man, because he don't know and won't know at 18. He'll learn about 25.
That's awesome, brother. Stay focused. Man, that's awesome.
Thanks, Jeff.
Man, that's beautiful. Man, I like that. That's good. That's good work. That's good work.